Welcome back to the Young Man Squad Fantasy Basketball Podcast, which is part of the Old Man Squad Sports Network. Today, we are going to be talking about 8 players from the 2023 NBA draft class and taking a look at whether or not they will be breakout candidates for this season. I'll give kind of a pathway for a breakout, pathway for it to not happen, and then kind of give my educated guess. But probably the more important part than what I think is going to happen is the different pathways and what you think is going to happen based on those potential pathways for this upcoming season. So we've got 8 players to talk about. Of course, there's a couple players at the top, Victor Wembanyama, Ausar Thompson, that we're not going to talk about for more obvious reasons that they're already studs. Brandon Miller, I'm not including in this, but I think that he is really good. So this isn't just the top 8 players from the 2023 class. It's also not the worst 8 players from the 2023 class, but it's some players that I think they're all first round guys, all top 20 guys actually. And talking about what this upcoming season could look like. So this is important for both redraft leagues and for dynasty managers if you're looking to buy in or trade away a player at a certain time, deciding if now is the right time to do so. And for a redraft perspective, knowing if these guys are going to help you this year. So we'll go ahead and dive into it. And the first player is one of the more polarizing players from this past class. His name is Scoot Henderson. This past season, he averaged 12.7 points, 3 rebounds, 5.1 assists, 1 steal, 1.6 threes per game. The usage went down a little bit. The minutes per game went down a little bit. He came off the bench a good bit. So therefore, the points and assists went slightly down. But he was more efficient, which isn't saying all that much because he was really, really inefficient during his rookie year. If you're watching, you're able to see this here on the screen. I've got Data Baller pulled up with some of his shooting statistics. The good news here is he gets to the rim at a high rate. Per 75 possessions, 4.6 rim attempts as a rookie, 4.2 rim attempts last year. Those are really good marks. He is able to get to the rim. He is maybe not the athlete that we thought he was, that he was just going to come in and be like that was going to give him a massive advantage, but he's still able to get to the rim at will. The bad news is he doesn't really finish that well. Now, he was better this past season after shooting 47.3% at the rim as a rookie. He was up to 55.4% last year. Now, what a good mark would be is probably in, I think, 65 to 70% range would be solid, which would be something we'd be very happy with, but probably at least 60%. 55.4 is not that good. Now, there are a few point guards that are kind of in that mix of shooting a similar rim percentage last season, such as guys like Trae Young, LaMelo Ball. I believe DeJounte Murray was in that range, but both DeJounte and LaMelo's games are pretty limited. There was another player, I forgot whose name is escaping me right now, who's really talented, very, very good, but is kind of in that similar range for a low rim percentage. The difference there is that those are more perimeter-oriented guards. They either shoot a higher percentage from outside than Scoot, or just more talented shooters do a lot more from the perimeter, or have a reliable floater that they go to. So you're not seeing a ton of rim attempts from a guy like Trae Young because he's shooting more floaters. He's shooting long threes. He's shooting, all sorts of other fun jazz like that. Not a ton of attempts at the rim, and he is a small guard, so you expect him to be a little bit of a lower percentage at the rim. Scoot Henderson, you're expecting a level of athleticism that helps him shoot a higher percentage at the rim. Now, the good news is that, or I guess more good news, is that the 3-point percentage did improve in his second season. He's hitting more threes. He's not a great shooter, but he's improving there. So now we're looking at a player who is a good passer. He wasn't a super efficient, the turnovers still aren't great, but he is a good passer. And he's improving as a perimeter shooter. He's improving at the rim. He's athletic. The defensive numbers are decent. He's not an elite defender, but he's not a bad defender. So he's kind of this league average player, I guess, right now, maybe above average, that there were super high expectations for. And he did not meet those as a rookie. And year 2 was not that much better. Year 3 is pivotal. this is when you're like, okay, you kind of need to be figuring this out by now. Or at least like you're a guy we invested a number 3 overall pick in. We really need to put you in a position to figure this out right now. That's how Portland should be approaching this. We'll see what they do. If it were me, I think that they should start him. We will see if they start him or not. If they don't, I'm not super optimistic about a breakout, but we'll see what ends up happening there. If he does start and they kind of give him the keys and say, hey, one way or another, you're going to figure this thing out this year, or we're probably going to have to figure something else out. So I'm expecting Scoot to have his best season as a pro. I'm expecting a ton of career highs, but maybe I'm not expecting this dramatic leap into being a 20-plus point per game scorer that averages over 7 assists per game and things like that. But maybe smaller improvements. Maybe he does see these numbers go up. Maybe he gets to 16 or 17 points, 6 assists, over a steal. He was at a steal last season. I think really, though, we need to see an improvement in efficiency. That would work wonders for me if he's able to get, he was at 41.9% from the floor last year. If he's able to get to 45%, still not great, but definitely an improvement. If he's able to become honestly sticking around 35, but if he's able to get to be a 37% 3-point shooter, that's a huge difference. Over 60% of the rim, I think would be a nice step forward for him. So there's definitely a path for improvement that I'd like to see from Scoot this year. And I am pretty optimistic that that's what we're going to see from him. The next player on our list is Ausar Thompson, who went 5th in this draft. Obviously, Scoot went 3rd. Now, Ausar Thompson, this guy is already proven to be a really good defensive player. And we'll be able to see that with some of these metrics here that I will show. If you're watching on the screen, you'll be able to see them. But more importantly, our partners at FanDuel have him at plus 6,000 to win Defensive Player of the Year, which is tied with Rudy Gobert, which I'm not saying Rudy Gobert is one of the favorites this year, but it's an interesting thing to consider. And he's at plus 2,500 to win Most Improved Player. Neither of those makes him a favorite, but it makes him up there. And I feel like specifically with Most Improved Player, it's such like a dart throw every year, because in my mind, if you can predict Most Improved Player and the improvement was expected, then how good or how much better were they really, or was it just kind of a natural progression? Either way, he's one of the favorites, not one of the favorites, but he's up there for both of those. And I think that seeing betting odds kind of line up with an expected breakout. They're expecting him to be one of the best defenders in the league, which he has been, but expecting him to, I guess, play enough to be able to have his name in consideration and have his name in consideration for Most Improved Player. Now, what does this lineup look like? I think that's actually going to be kind of a bigger question if we're going to talk about how good he can be this upcoming season. Does he start? I assume he starts, but I'm not entirely sure at this point. Let's see if I can get a good depth chart from online, or at least a nice roster here. I would assume that he's starting at the 3 with Jaden Ivey at the 2 to open the season. That would be, I think, their most talented lineup next to obviously Cade, Tobias Harris, and Jalen Duren is probably the lineup that we'll see. Depending on what happens with Malik Beasley, if he's back, they added Duncan Robinson. I don't think he'll start. They added Karis LeVert. I don't think he'll start. I think Malik Beasley being back is the only thing that could potentially impact that, but I don't think that Ausar is the one that's pushed to the bench. I think that would probably be Jaden Ivey because Ausar Thompson is the best defender they have. So I'm expecting him to start, play a ton. He's really good on the glass, but the stocks are where he's really going to make an impact in fantasy basketball. Among players, so this is going to be an uber-specific stat, but just bear with me here for a second. Among players in their second season since the 2019-2020 season, so this is just sophomore players since the Zion, John Morant, Darius Garland draft class, so the 2019 draft class, playing in their second year. So a very specific group of players, but to average at least 2.3 steals per 75 possessions. Okay, now does that make, just clarifying that makes sense, because I know it's a very niche little target range. But it is showing players in their second year in recent history and how good they are at getting steals. And it puts it in perspective with per possession stats, not just minutes. So it helps, if a player wasn't playing as much, because Ausar Thompson didn't play as much. 5 players. Matisse Thybulle, who is a stock expert and got a ton of steals, ton of blocks, and was not able to, I guess, stick around as a consistent rotation player because he didn't do anything offensively, which Ausar Thompson cannot shoot, but he is much better offensively than Matisse Thybulle. Ausar Thompson, who is at 2.7 steals per 75 possessions. Yeah, because I believe these are per 100 possession stats on the screen. He's at 3.6, so that makes sense. The other 3 are D'Anthony Melton, who was a Dynasty legend and fantasy legend there for a couple-year stretch when he was with Memphis. And then injuries and going to different teams, didn't really get the opportunity. Got the opportunity sometimes, especially with Philadelphia, had a nice stretch there, but now kind of forgotten about the last 2 years or so, or at least that feels like I haven't heard much about him this upcoming season. I don't even remember if he signed somewhere, but he had that stretch where he was really, really valued. And then we have Cason Wallace, who is from the same draft class, incredible defender, high-level defender. We'll talk about him later. And Dyson Daniels, who obviously led the league in steals last year. So Amen Thompson didn't make this list, but Ausar Thompson did. If you're looking at the screen, you can see that in rim points saved per 100 possessions, steals, blocks, deflections per 100 possessions, Ausar Thompson is elite. He was elite. So now it's all about opportunity. Ausar Thompson is going to be really good in redraft leagues this season. He's going to, especially if he starts. I'm pulling up ADP data right now so that we can see exactly what we're looking at here. See where he's going, because I think it's important to get the redraft idea. The Yahoo rank is 136. Yeah, that seems like incredible value to me. I would definitely, goodness, am I able to get some ADP data here? All right, found his ADP on Yahoo. It's 98.4. That's probably fair range, but I think that he's going to thoroughly outplay that. Especially if you are needing defensive stats and you're building a team that maybe is punting threes. Yeah, he's in for a big season. All the metrics show that. It's just all about opportunity for him. He's in for a big year. If you're in a redraft league, definitely don't leave your draft without him. All right. The next player we'll talk about here is another guy that I'm expecting to have a big year, but big year relative to what he has shown so far, which he hasn't really gotten much of an opportunity to show really anything. And that is Jarace Walker. Now, obviously, everyone's very familiar with the Pacers situation with no Tyrese Halliburton this year. Miles Turner's gone. There's going to be tons of minutes, tons of shots, tons of ball handling opportunities here. We've talked about Andrew Nembhard. We've talked about Benedict Mathurin. We even talked about Aaron Nesmith. But I think Jarace Walker is another player that could see a big increase in opportunity and big increase in usage. And now we talk about what they could do at center. It could be Jay Huff at center, Isaiah Jackson. They could spend a lot of time with just Siakam at center, which opens the door for Jarace Walker and Obi Toppin to see minutes. Obviously, Obi Toppin is a little bit older. We're not talking about his draft class today. We're talking about 2023 class, and we're talking about Jarace Walker right now. If you look at some of his advanced shooting splits from last year, at the rim, 56.8% is not good. Short mid-ranges, which I don't know the exact measurement for that, but I believe it's in the paint, but not the restricted area or somewhere around there. 56.3%, so it's pretty much the same as the rim percentage, but that's a much higher percentile, much better, like really good from that spot. And then from deep, 40.5% after shooting 40% as a rookie. Now, limited, shot attempts in comparison to other players because he didn't play a ton, but he saw his role increase in year 2 for sure. So we see he has the opportunity, or I guess the opportunity that is definitely there. He has shown the ability to be an effective scorer outside of the rim, but he is a little bit undersized. I'd call him an undersized 4. But then also the defensive metrics show him to be, I think, a pretty good defensive player. We can take a look at some of those. The steals per 100 possessions, 83rd percentile for his position. Blocks, 83rd percentile. Deflections, 81st percentile. Stop percentage, 82nd percentile, which it says it right here. If you haven't used Data Baller, it's great. It explains everything. Stop percentage is steals plus offensive fouls drawn plus blocks recovered by the defense. So not just any block, just like it's actually blocks that they get the ball back, or they get the ball and it starts a new possession, or they get a stop. It's another way to put it, which is why it's called stop percentage. An effective defensive player, a player that I think has some creation ability, some playmaking ability, shown that at times during his first 2 years, and has shown himself to be an effective outside shooter. And now he's going to get an increased opportunity. I like what Jarace Walker has been able to produce. I don't think that it's necessarily a super negative thing that he hasn't been able to, I guess, play a massive role on the Pacers so far, despite being a top 10 pick, because this team has been really good the last couple of years. Didn't play a ton as a rookie, but 75 games last year at 15.8 minutes per game. Well, if Obi Toppin is more effective and they're trying to win a championship, then that doesn't mean that Obi Toppin is more important to their future plans. But if he's more effective, then he's going to play more, especially if it's a backup power forward role with Pascal Siakam. So despite having 2 power forwards, I guess, ahead of him in the depth chart, still able to play 16 minutes per game. I obviously expect that to continue to increase, get over 20 minutes per game this year, and hopefully see a lot of different career marks. So I think as like a late round dart throw in a redraft league, I'd be happy with it. Dynasty, I think that might be difficult to buy now because I'm sure anyone that has him is already paying attention to the fact that the Pacers are going to need him more this year and that he's going to get a larger opportunity. So might be difficult, but expecting him to really get an opportunity this year and to have the best season of his career. All right, the next player that we have on our list is a player that did not play much this past season because he played 3 games I think it was like 3 games until he got hurt, and that is Taylor Hendricks, who went 1 pick after Jarace Walker in this draft. We can't even really look at too many of his stats from this past season. We have some from his rookie season just because he didn't play enough. But what we're able to see here from Taylor Hendricks is some average shooting marks. 70.4% at the rim is good. It's not great, but it's good for a player of his size, for a 6'9" wing. 37.9% from 3 is pretty decent. And we know that he is a high level, or at least the high level for the Jazz type of defender. He's going to see a lot of opportunities early on to be an impactful defender. He played 3 games last year and had 5 steals and 4 blocks. It was terrible offensively. That's really the question here, is how much are we going to be able to get from him offensively? Because it was meh as a rookie, and it was pretty bad during 3 games in year 2. So hopefully we'll see some more offense from him. I expect him to start for the Jazz this season, or at least play a really significant role. It is kind of messy with that rotation, with Ace Bailey being added in, with Lauri Markkanen still there. Kyle Filipowski had a really good summer. Cody Williams is still there. I'm not saying that Cody Williams is going to take Taylor Hendricks out of the rotation, but Bryce Sensabaugh had a really good summer. So there's plenty of competition for minutes here. Markkanen is obviously going to get his minutes and shots, but Hendricks defensively, I think, is important enough for him to, if not start, at least play a really, really big role for this team. I'd love to see a fully healthy season out of him. My offensive expectations are low, and that is my number one question mark is how much are we getting from him offensively? I think I'm less optimistic about using a late round pick on him in a redraft league, but definitely still a valuable player in dynasty formats. But the upside defensively, like potential production defensively, is really intriguing for both dynasty managers and redraft managers. So keep an eye on the Jazz's first few games if you don't take him in as a late round guy in a redraft league. All right, next player we've got is Cason Wallace, who we mentioned earlier because he was one of a few players to meet our niche statistic as a defensive player, as a defender. I think it's almost hard to comprehend just how good defensively the Thunder were last year because Lou Dort gets a lot of praise. But Cason Wallace was, and Alex Caruso obviously gets a lot of praise. A lot of his is, he's an elite defender and he also is a defensive playmaker. So they get some praise on the perimeter. Chet and Isaiah Hartenstein were great down low. Cason Wallace almost went under the radar at times, but he was close to making an all defensive team. I don't think he actually made an all defensive team. Let me double check that, but I think he was close in the ballot. But he is an elite defender. Let's see. I've got the voting results up here, depending on how well my Wi-Fi wants to cooperate. Yeah. Oh, yeah. The other all defensive defender, Jalen Williams, was also on that team. Okay, so Cason Wallace got 3 second place votes. So it wasn't that close, but he did get votes for an all defensive team last year. So obviously a high level defender. When we've seen, I guess the main issue here with him is that it's a low usage role. And part of that is the fact that he is on the Thunder. And the Thunder, if you check out our partners at FanDuel, are the favorites to repeat as NBA title champions. They have SGA, they have Jalen Williams, they have Chet Holmgren, they have Isaiah Hartenstein, they have Alex Caruso, they have Lou Dort. They were just able to add Thomas Sorber in the draft. They have Nikola Topic coming back after missing all of last season. Aaron Wiggins, who saved basketball. We have Isaiah Joe, elite shooter. Cason Wallace was kind of in the mix in a kind of a rotation of sometimes starting, sometimes not for a good bit of last season between him, Aaron Wiggins, Isaiah Joe. And then that was when Chet was out, but it was still starting in and out. Believe, did he start the NBA Finals game 1 and that was the lineup change, or did he get benched? And that was the change. Now I got to double check that. But the point is that he was able to play a large role on the team that won the NBA Finals and was the best. Yes, okay, so he was moved into the starting lineup, but I believe Isaiah Hartenstein was starting for most of the playoffs, which I will double check. Yes, okay, that's correct. So in and out of the starting lineup, obviously they value him as defensively. The issue is that he is on this team, this very, very talented team. But he has been efficient in a low usage role, but still obviously been able to focus on defense and has been an elite defender. So if we look here, 11.7% of the time in an on-ball role, it's very low. It's 28th percentile for his position. So it doesn't really give him an opportunity to, I guess, get a ton of assists or create for others often. His bad pass to turnover percentage is 8.6, which is 94th percentile for his position, which is the bad pass turnover divided by potential assists plus bad pass turnover. Advanced stat to show that he doesn't turn the ball over often or make bad passes often. That's the important thing. He's efficient in a low usage role. Works really well for the Thunder. Doesn't work great for fantasy managers. I think he's more of a potential stud waiting to kind of pop a little bit, but he hasn't really got the opportunity. I'm not confident that he's going to get it in OKC within the next year or two. And honestly, with the way they're building this team out, I'm not confident that that's going to ever be him, unless he just becomes just so talented that they have to. But they have the MVP on their team. They have other all-star talents. So it's going to be difficult for him. It's definitely a scenario where if he does get moved, I'd be very interested to see how he looks if he was given a starting opportunity to be the lead ball handler. But right now, just a really impactful player for the Thunder that probably isn't going to be as impactful on your fantasy team, unfortunately. All right, we've got, let's see, 3 more players to talk about. 2 of them I'm less excited about, but we'll still take a look at them. The first one being Gradey Dick for the Raptors. Obviously, we know what he does. He shoots threes. He was not good at the rim. 52.5% at the rim was 8th percentile for his position. Not great. 35% from 3 isn't great. But he took 7.4 threes per game, which is a lot. And if we look at the way this Raptors team is constructed, we have what I assume in the starting lineup will be Emmanuel Quickley, pretty good off the ball, can shoot. RJ Barrett, not great off the ball, not a great shooter. Brandon Ingram plays with the ball in his hands. I think is a good shooter, but unless Toronto's getting him to buy back into shooting a lot of threes, I'm expecting a lot of mid-range shots. Same thing from RJ Barrett. Scotty Barnes, who's not a great shooter, but will shoot the ball. And Jakob Poeltl, who, my goodness, if he ever starts taking threes for some reason, will get benched. They're going to need someone to shoot threes. They've recently drafted Gradey Dick, and they've recently drafted Jacoby Walter. And then they added another non-shooter in Colin Murray Boyles, or just poor shooter right now. We'll see if he's just a flat-out non-shooter, if he's a poor shooter over the next couple of years. But Gradey Dick is going to have to play a pretty significant role in this team for spacing purposes. I think that he'll probably come off the bench, but he'll have to play at least 20 minutes per game to give this team some spacing. And I'm not sure. I mean, I would assume that RJ Barrett is the odd man out at times, but Gradey Dick, he played 29.4 minutes per game last year, but he was a starter for most of the year. Actually, I don't think he came off the bench at all last season before his season ended at the beginning of March. That's what he's going to be there to do. Now, he had some games early on last year where he was getting some steals, getting some assists, getting some rebounds. I'm not expecting a ton of those, but I do think he's more than just a shooter, so he will get some kind of peripheral stats. But mainly he's there to shoot threes, and it will be important for the Raptors. But I'm not confident that's going to work out super well for your fantasy team this upcoming season. But he'll be important for the Raptors, and he will hit threes. So if maybe he's sitting on your waiver wire. I'm not sure exactly. Let's see if we can find that out. If he's being drafted in Yahoo leagues. So he's currently 10% rostered in Yahoo leagues with no ADP for Gradey Dick. So probably not really being drafted, but 10% rostered in Yahoo leagues based on what I'm pulling up right now. So pretty available. So maybe it's Sunday afternoon or Saturday night and you're like, hey, I really need a couple extra threes to try and win a category or something like that. Sure. Add Gradey Dick for a game. For a points league, obviously it'll work a little bit better if he's scoring points and then getting a couple extra stats here and there. Don't have to worry about him shooting poorly at the rim or worry about him being a pretty average 3-point shooter by percentage, because he's getting up a lot of them and he's scoring. And I think he's going to have to play a significant role. It's not going to be the 29 minutes per game that we saw this past season, but it'll probably be more than the 21 minutes per game that he played as a rookie. But my expectations aren't super high unless you just really need points and threes. Yeah. 2 more guys to talk about, with the next one being Keyonte George, who I think if you watched him during his first summer league, it was like, oh, okay, like he's going to be really good, because he was really good in that summer league. And it's like he was really good, I guess one of the better rookies. But what we see, let me see. No, this is the stat I wanted to show. If you're watching on the screen, he is a volume scorer. They tried having him as point guard. He's an okay passer. He does pretty well. He can create his own shot. He's just not super efficient at it. If we see here, his creation true shooting percentage, and they have the relative true shooting percentage on creation play types, which includes ISOs, pick and roll ball handler situations where they have Keyonte George has the ball in his hands, and post up, which he's not really doing. The numbers are not great. 49.1% true shooting percentage, and the relative true shooting percentage is minus 3.8%. So not good. But then we look at the finishing numbers, and they're also poor. But the spacing, true shooting percentage, which is spot ups, handoffs, and off screens, is high. He's at 58.4%, which is 74th percentile for his position. I don't love just talking about basketball with advanced stats. I'm never going to say like, yeah, but actually, if we look at his spacing relative true shooting percentage, it's much better than his creation relative true shooting. Like, I'm not like, goodness, please don't talk to me like that. But I think if you're able to look at the numbers and read them and understand what they mean, okay, that actually matches up with what I see. Keyonte George shoots the ball a lot off the dribble. That's what it says here, that like he shoots more creation, true shooting attempts, which are ISOs, pick and roll, ball handler, or post ups, than spacing or finishing, but not combined, obviously. And he's not super efficient there. He's not a great finisher at the rim, but in catch and shoot situations, he actually is pretty good. He is a good shooter. Now, I don't think that this means he should stop being a shot creator, because I think it's a valuable archetype in a sense. Having him as a sixth man, I think, is really helpful. I don't think he's a great defender either, and there's stats to back that up. So does he just need to be a catch and shoot player? Like, probably not. Like, I think he's much more talented than that, and I think if you watch that, you can tell. But I think, for him to maximize his fantasy output and help this team win games, maybe not having the ball in his hands as much and being more effective as an off-ball scorer than an on-ball scorer will help, while still getting the opportunity to score on the ball at times. But it's not his most efficient method of playing. But do we think that will happen? Do we think he'll convert into more of an off-ball role? I don't. But maybe if we can see, I guess, kind of the ratio of how many shots he's taking without the ball in his hands, or where it's being fed to him, versus creating his own shot, that could help his market. We'll potentially see that with the addition of Walter Clayton Jr., because now they have him and they have Isaiah Collier. So if they're spending most of the time as the point guard and with the ball in their hands, and then Keyonte George is in more of an off-ball role, maybe we'll see an improved efficiency from him. So I could definitely see a scenario where Keyonte George has his best season as a pro, but it may not be, maybe his most efficient season, but maybe a decrease in volume impacts his numbers in a different way. So still think he's better in points leagues than in category leagues, but he will definitely have the ability to make an impact in category leagues as long as you can kind of deal with some of the inefficiencies. All right. The last player is probably not the exact opposite, but pretty different in the sense that maybe if you watch, it doesn't look quite as pretty as it does with a guy like Keyonte George, but a guy who, the advanced stats like this guy. It's Brandin Podziemski. He is a really good defender, rebounder. We can see that. Let me see as a rookie, 97th percentile for his position, and last year, 96th percentile for his position. Pretty solid defender. I don't know how much the rebounding factors into some of these defensive stats, but if they do, then that will definitely help. But I think he's still a solid defender. And a lot of the, more impact stats you can check out here. Very positive numbers here, but he's pretty good at the rim, pretty good from beyond the arc, pretty efficient player. I think not too sure exactly what his role looks like, if it'll be any different. this upcoming season for Golden State. Because obviously it's still going to run through Steph. It's going to run through Jimmy Butler. Last year, Pod started really slow, but he was really good down the stretch after they kind of got this whole team healthy and he was playing alongside Jimmy. He immediately moved into the starting lineup and the numbers really started to pop. Final 2 months of the season was top 75 in 9 cat leagues. A lot of threes, decent amount of assists and steals, a lot of rebounds for a guard. So definitely a lot to like from Pods for fantasy. And just if you're looking at efficiency and advanced stats, a lot to like from him, especially the second half of last year. I think he was more of a late round flyer after his rookie year that we were pretty excited about. And then last season, and then didn't end up working out early on last season, but currently rostered in 70% of Yahoo leagues. So that definitely makes sense. 126.2 ADP, a late round dart throw, but I feel pretty confident that Pods will be pretty good this year. So I'll probably, when I sit down and do redraft rankings, we'll have him probably higher than this ADP. But yeah, definitely like some of these numbers when I look through them. But that's going to do it for this episode of the Young Man Squad Fantasy Basketball Podcast, which is part of the Old Man Squad Sports Network, which is also part of the Believe Network and brought to you by FanDuel. We will have more content coming this week, including some more players that we'll talk about with Matt Lawson. But that's going to do it, and I will see you guys next time.